good evening, and welcome to another episode of your daily show, Achievements. I'm your host, Fatma Al Hadri. This evening, I'm joined by my colleague, Abdul Latif Al Anizi. Good evening, Abdul Latif.
Good evening, Fatma. And as my colleagues say, we are your hosts and welcome our dear viewers. So tonight we have with us a special guest. He is a gold medalist and he is known as national team squash player. His achievement is not just in Kuwait, but all around the world. Although his age is still young, yet he achieved a lot for himself and for his country. Please welcome with us the Kuwaiti champion and the gold medalist, Mr. Adbi Khalid. Welcome, Mr. Adbi, and thank you for being here with us at the show for today.
Thank you both. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with you guys, and thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure to have you. Of course, we'd like to know more about your early steps into this passion. So can you tell us more about Adbi?
I believe it started back in the days, early 2000s. My father introduced me to the game of squash. He's an advocate of the sport and he's a basketball player, so he's around sports. And basically he saw it's fitting for me to play squash, and from that day since I'm playing squash.
It's fun, the squash. It's actually more fun and more difficult than the other racket sports, but I found it really interesting, but in another way. Is it right for that?
Indeed. It is a closed kind of indoor game where most of other racket sports are outdoors beside of table tennis. It is more challenging in terms of physicality and in terms of the demand of it. But neither of that, it's a lovely sport to practice and play.
I wanted to try it, but I heard that's really competitive. So if you have a teammate, he might hit you with his racket. So I said, okay, I'm not going to try it.
Definitely. But that goes for all racket sports. You might hit with the ball or a racket, of course, but there are some safety and precautious measures, of course, they put in place where you wear goggles and we play with the right opponent, and you should be fine and safe.
So tell us more about your home background, and did it affect you to become what you are today?
As I said earlier, my father, he's into sports. He's actually a basketball player. So I already had the infrastructure and the ground rules of being an athlete before being a squash player. And introducing an individual sport that just put more demand into becoming a better sportsmanship, let's say, having a better sportsmanship. Beside of all of that, the endorsement of the family, of course, and the right coaches provided me the adequate, let's say, guidance or the road to become a successful player.
Of course, you mentioned earlier that your father was a squash player, also a basketball player. So what really made you choose squash as the line to walk into, not basketball?
Honestly, it wasn't a choice. It was forced down by my father. He figured it's less physicality because as we all know that the sports of basketball, it demands physicality. Although I love a team sport, but I mean, I saw it is more fitting for me to play squash, and I actually enjoyed playing the game. First couple of years were hard because you're in a room, 4x4 room, trying to manage to hit the ball to the wall all alone by yourself. There's no teammates. It's an individual sport.
Also, it's kind of get boring when you want to train it. I mean, after 20 minutes, you say, okay, what next?
I think it's a very fun game to play. I tried to play squash. It's very fun. But it can get aggressive sometimes. I think this is like the scary part when it comes with the ball. It can bounce off the walls, and it's like a very hard hit to it because sometimes the ball is very heavy. There's even like different types of balls, Indeed. Which is very interesting.
Indeed. Of course, when you start as a beginner, you go with the softer ball where the ball is bouncier. But as you become an advancer player, you have to go with the professional player.
It's less bouncy?
Yes, it becomes less bouncy, and then you have to warm it up for it to be as bouncy as, let's say, a beginner's softball.
How heavy is it?
They're about the same measurement, but let's say, the core of the ball itself, it's different from an advanced ball to a beginner.
Well, actually, I'm not convinced with it, seriously. But if I wanted to try it, then I'm going to try it with a professional, who is you. Okay? So can you tell us about your first competition with squash?
My first competition, actually, I brought a trophy of it. I made sure that I bring my first competition achievement, let's say, and the last one. My first one was back in 2016. I was about 11 years old. It was in Al Arabi Club. Back then I was still getting the hang of the sport. I was not really into it as much. As I told you, it's a kind of a boring game for a kid who wants to play with his friends and all of that.
More social game.
More a social game. Squash was
age.
not that of a social game for me. So when I started playing just for fun. And as soon as I entered my first competition back in 2016, I was, I think, 11 years old, I managed to secure the 3rd place, and that brought joy.
Squash?
In squash.
And your competitive also were at the same age?
Yeah. So it's an age category. We have different age categories, but I started at the category of under 11 years old. So basically, I was 11 years old, and I managed to secure the 3rd place. And that achievement kickstart the whole process of becoming a better athlete.
And now it's fun for you more than
definitely,
ever.
yeah, definitely. I've been doing this for more than 17 years now.
Of course. So which one would you say is your favorite championship? Because you mentioned earlier that championship was the reason why you kept on pursuing the game of squash. So which game did you think was your favorite when it comes to championships and competing abroad or even in Kuwait?
Indeed. I think that's a lovely question. That's one of them, but there's also a dear to my heart, let's say, trophy, which is I brought it here. I made sure that I bring both. The last championship that I went to is in Bangladesh. Believe it or not, that there's some people play squash in Bangladesh, and then it's an international event for professional athlete. It's not under 11 age group. It's like for seniors and professional athletes where you secure.
How old are you with it at the time?
Now that achievement is early, 2022. So that's what I was like 26.
2 years ago.
Yeah, 26 maybe. So basically, the reason why I hold it dear to my heart is that because at the same time it was that I traveled to Bangladesh, it was the time of the pandemic, where I had to get vaccinated and a lot of
procedures,
constraints basically into traveling itself, and I decided to go and pursue that championship. It was my first championship professionally.
And it was your favorite?
It is. A lot of hard work and dedication was put on for such achievement. I managed to go all alone by myself. It's not within the national team spectrum or border. Being a professional player seeking a professional ranking, that does not cover it within the scope of the Kuwait Squash Federation. Unfortunately. So this is a whole thing, a whole new spectrum of me becoming a squash player into a level of professionalism. It's not national, it's more of a professionalism. So in squash, just like in tennis, there's professional events and there's national events where you represent your country, and then if you want to proceed a ranking, global ranking, you have to go for those professional tournaments. So we see one building, we see B&B tournaments in tennis. Similarly, we have those tournaments in
and
squash.
Of course, you tried tennis, right?
I tried paddle. They call it
which
paddle
is more
tennis.
fun, squash or paddle? Seriously.
That's a debate for another time. But I think a squash player will always say squash is
more fun.
Is more fun. Yeah.
And of course, you have your favorite squash player who you learn some moves from and take some techniques. Can you tell us who is that squash player?
I think for all Kuwaiti players that are in tennis and squash and paddle, they know the name Abdallah Mzayin. He's one of the elites in Kuwait and globally. And of course, if you talk to any Kuwaiti player, we'll definitely tell you Abdallah Mzayin is the guy.
Yeah. Of course, Adwi, we still have a lot more questions for you, but we will watch this report, dear viewers. Stay with us.
Adwi is a professional squash player. He has been able to join many tournaments inside of Kuwait and abroad. He spends most of his time practicing and improving himself in his favorite hobby. He also managed to achieve several wins. Earlier, in 2009 and until 2016, Adwi has joined the golf tournament and has won the first place. In addition, during the same years, he has also joined the Arabian tournament and also won the first place. In 2019, he participated in the private schools tournament of squash and was able to win the first place. Adwi always strives to do his best and aims for greater achievements. Moreover, as Adwi joined many tournaments abroad, he was able to win the first place in the Open Championship for professionals that was held in Bangladesh. He has also participated in tournaments in Kuwait. He was able to join the 15th tournament in Kuwait and earn the second place. In addition, in 2022, he participated in the Professionals Open tournament that was held in the Philippines and earned the third place. During the same year, he joined a Professionals Open championship that was held in Netherlands and won the third place. Certainly, these achievements have helped Athby improve more and encouraged him to always do his best. He has also joined the professional squash tournament in Belgium and won the 5th place. He has been consistent and on track since a young age, and today Athby continues to strive more. This is assuredly a great achievement that we are all proud of.
Welcome back, our viewer, as we continue our interview with our guest, Athby. So can you tell us your favorite time to do what you love, which is your hobby?
Basically, nowadays, being a full-time employee, the only time that I have to practice my hobby is an afternoon from 5 to 7 p.m. Later on, I do a couple of PT, personal training sessions with some clients, and that's the only time I have.
I think it can be very hard sometimes, even like managing your time. You need some time off, you need to relax, but with a full-time job and then you have to practice and you have PTs, it can be a very busy schedule. So do you get sometimes like overwhelmed, or you just need to like take the whole day off? Do you do that often?
I got the weekend for that, but every now and then I tend to have mid of the week kind of a switch off mood, where I don't talk to anyone and I just go to a remote place and sit alone and enjoy the comfort and the quiet of nature, let's say. And the next day I feel all good and good to go to do
just
the
take
thing.
a breather, just
Exactly.
recharge, you know.
Exactly,
I think
yeah.
that's very important.
Indeed.
Because sometimes it can be overwhelming having such a very busy lifestyle.
Also, when you have your hobby, or you have which is the squash, it's a little bit hard and difficult sometimes when you want it to train or you wanted to practice it. So what do you do during the weekend? Because do you like to practice squash even the weekend days?
Honestly, Friday is a sacred day for us here in Kuwait.
Yeah.
Friday is for family. That's what I always tell everyone. Whether it's work, squash, or whatsoever, it's family comes first, and Friday is for family. And then Saturday is for the guys, where we go out, and I also train on Saturday twice a day, but I mean, I still have enough time to go out and maybe have dinner outside with my friends.
Does your friends practice squash with you?
Most of them, yes.
Do they like it?
Of course. I mean, after putting more than 17 plus years into the sports, mainly that's what we mostly talk about whenever we go for dinner or whatsoever. Inside the court and outside, it's always about squash.
Do you share the same hobby, which is the squash?
Yeah, indeed. Some of them, they're professional athletes as well. We compete and we go out for dinner and all of that.
I think sometimes even like for a squash player, sometimes you switch, like you try paddle, you try tennis. I think a lot of people, especially with racket games, they try these different variety of games. So do you often like try a different game every week, like just to change the mood when it comes to practicing squash? Just like lightening up the mood, have a simple competition between you guys. Do you do that often, or is it like rarely?
During the season, we tend not to do that. No one recommends that, especially if you're competing, because racket sports, sometimes if you switch from, let's say, a day where you want to go just have fun and play paddle, the next day your swing is off, the way you hit the ball is off.
You miss with your skills.
Exactly. You kind of feel foggy when you play your sports, when you play squash. So you need like 10-20 minutes just realignment before going into playing, let's say, competitively. So that might affect you if you have, during the season, if you have, let's say, a match next day. So you're not supposed to go play paddle or tennis or football.
Of course.
So during the season, no, but off season, whatever soccer, tennis, paddle, you name it. Anything outside of the court.
And how is the food routine with you?
I'm a foodie. I like food.
Healthy or unhealthy?
You name it.
Everything.
So you don't have like a strict diet routine?
No. People are so judgmental. They're telling me that this is the wrong thing to do, the wrong approach. We're going without a diet, and
you already burn it when you play, because squash burns a lot of calories, more than 1,000 I heard.
I understand and I agree, but there's a saying that says you cannot overburn or let's say, overwork a bad diet. It's like, it's not like you're eating 3,000 calories and you're jumping into a squash court and you're burning 3,000 calories and that you're safe for good. But I mean, I kind of tend to eating clean, but most of the time,
Yeah, cheat meals, that's hiding everywhere.
Most of the week is the cheat meal for me.
Most of the week.
Yeah.
So, also during during the season, do you have a coach that tells you what to do and what not to do, or you coach your own self?
Of course, as a squash player, you need a coach with you 24/7. Regardless of spending a lot of time being an athlete, 17, 18 plus years in the game, you still need an eye outside of the court where it guides you and tells you you're lacking in this part, or you need to focus on that part, or that shot is lacking for you. There's a couple of coaches here in Kuwait that are really good in terms of that. I'm blessed to have those by my corner, whether in the national team or my own club. And with that, I was able to push forward to those achievements and such things.
That's really wonderful. So who is Adbi's biggest fan?
I wouldn't say, I don't know who's my biggest fan, to be honest, but I got supporters. That goes without saying, the family and the coaches. Also, the Kuwait Squash Federation is the biggest supporters for all of squash athletes, not just Adbi. And that sums up.
So you have the support from all over the family and
Yes,
with
I
your
think
friends.
this is a very important question. Like you, Julie, do you think that you get enough support from your family or friends, or do you think like you could get a little bit more when it comes to encouragement for championships, or even like having the support during the game, like your friends watching, supporting you?
I believe those who know me, I'm into sports since I was young, so everyone understands that. Whenever they call me, they know from 5 to 7 Adbis in the club. Don't bother him. My parents, my father is actually a sports guy, I told you. He used to play basketball, so he's fully on board with me being busy in the sports life and traveling and playing tournaments. He's so supportive. My brothers as well. I mean, I haven't lacked in that department. I haven't seen anyone that was like, hey, you're putting too much into sports, or nagging about me being an athlete. Mainly they're supportive and they're encouraging me to go to more tournaments. As a squash player, you need to travel a lot to play tournaments. Sometimes in a year you travel 15 plus times to play tournaments, and that's a lot, quite a lot.
Of course, and you have to be like working out every time, practicing.
Exactly.
So it can be very hard sometimes to have even a social life. So even if you have like time out, like you don't have a practice or anything, you just need to recharge, as they mentioned earlier, like take time for yourself. So I think this is very important to have this kind of support, that them being understanding of your career and your lifestyle. It's very important. And when it comes to having like a critic, sometimes you have a coach, a mentor, someone who watches like some moves that you need to improve or notice some mistakes during your play. So who is that person, and what do they usually give you when it comes to tips?
One of my coaches, Captain Thamer, he's well known in Kuwait. I mean, he has an eye for it. We trained 2 years now already, into 2 years of training together. And whenever I lose a match, or whenever I feel not quite good when I play a match, even though I won the match, even if I'm abroad playing, he's just like 2 texts away from me. Like between games, he can speak to me and he tell me, well, no, you should do this or you should do that. He's watching the live feed from Kuwait, and I could be halfway through the world, and he's like, no, that was a bad shot, and that was not your day. You weren't there, or you weren't playing good. So when I come back home, I already have a game plan. He's the guy to go to and have a game plan. So that's
he tells you what to do if you had like some bad day or bad game with it?
No, actually, sometimes I can blame myself a lot. Like traveling and going and playing tournaments all alone, sometimes it becomes a bit hectic.
Stressful.
Exactly.
Of course.
So, and as soon as like, even if I won, I'm like, okay, but I could have won in a better way. Or if I've lost a match, I could have won.
Do you think
So-
like if someone actually like went with you for the support, like your coach or anyone of the teammates, do you think like that would help encourage you like perform better, do better? Because sometimes if you're all alone, it can be very stressful, like handling the game, the checking into the hotel and stuff like that. There's a lot of process to do all by yourself and still prepare for the game. Like you have to work out, you have to check the court itself, even like meet other competitors. So like having, I think, support system with you when you go can be like really helpful and
Exactly.
game
Yeah.
changing.
Totally, I totally agree with you. In the beginning of my professional career as seeking a professional points and world ranking, I started playing tournaments alone, traveling alone. And then later on, a couple of my colleagues have started to play with me and travel with me. It's a totally game changer for me. They were supporting me. Sometimes you travel alone in a different country and there's no one to support you inside the court, like cheering for you.
You
And
support
go
your
out-
own self. You have yourself there.
Yeah, but to a certain extent, you know, you look back, you need someone in your
Yeah.
corner to just tell you like, you got this, or
Keep
you're
going.
doing good.
Yes.
Don't worry, it's
It's
okay.
more challenge.
Exactly. So first couple of tournaments, I managed. I would say I managed. I won the first one.
Congratulations. That's really good one.
Yeah, indeed. But later on, when I had my friends with me, it was much easier. They were able to come and check me out if I'm feeling not okay. We managed to stay in the same room together. We cheered each other, and whenever we go practice and get the feel of the court together instead of going alone. So that really helped change the whole atmosphere about traveling.
That
course.
is really nice. So of course, Abby, we have more and more questions, but stay with us, ladies and gentlemen, as we come back for more and more after this report.
Sport means all forms of physical activity which, through casual or organized participation, aim at expressing or improving physical fitness and mental well-being. For example, forming social relationships or obtaining results in competition at all levels. Surely, sports can help us reach our fitness goals and maintain a healthy weight. Sports also have hidden health benefits such as lowering chances of different diseases in life. Being included in physical activity like sports improves your heart function, reduces the risk of diabetes, lowers tension and stress, and controls blood sugar. Playing sports helps you build muscles and improves your coordination and muscle memory. There are many types of sports such as football, basketball, volleyball, tennis, and much more. In addition, car racing is also considered as a sport. Car racing is a motor sport involving the racing of automobiles for competition. Car racing has existed ever since the invention of the automobiles. Formula One is the most popular racing series in the world currently. Formula One cars are open and known as some of the fastest vehicles in the world. Most people love racing cars because to the adrenaline rush that they get during these types of events. For instance, in Formula One racing, the speed of powerful cars is really attractive. Moreover, sports are divided into many categories, such as individual sports, partner sports, team sports, and extreme sports. Some of the individual sports are golf, horse riding, and judo. Partner sports are considered to diving, tennis, and volleyball, whereas team sports are football, basketball, and handball. Extreme sports are climbing, skateboarding, and water skiing. Hence, running is the most accessible and easiest sport to play. All you need is a good pair of running shoes and you're good to go. In addition, there are no rules in running, but that what makes running so free-form and fun. Running is all about setting goals for yourself and working to achieve those goals.
Welcome back, our viewers, as we continue our interview. So, Adbi, can you tell us what are your deepest fears as a squash player?
I believe any athlete would jump and say
Injuries.
Injuries, because it's part of the game, part of the sport, but it could be a showstopper. Definitely, and especially if you're prepping for a tournament, and that happened to me before going to a tournament in Netherlands. 1 week before the tournament, I managed to sprain an ankle. Depends on which degree the ankle is sprained. The duration of the recovery from the injury is set. I am one of the lucky ones to be sponsored by MAD Recovery Center, which is a recovery center of, let's say, if you have an injury or whatsoever. I went to them, they managed to patch me up. I went, unfortunately I did not win the tournament, but I secured the 3rd place in that tournament.
Which is still amazing.
Exactly.
Like after getting an injury and still winning like
Exactly.
the 3rd place is a great achievement.
Indeed.
I think a lot of athletes, as you mentioned, they really don't like the injuries. So for you, usually, like if you get injured, how much time do you spend on recovery?
Anyone is into sport will tell you, as soon as you get injured, tackle that injury. We sometimes tend to go macho man and say, no, shake it
I
off,
can do
and
it,
I
it's
can do it,
fine.
and it's fine. You might, but later on, it's not within your benefit. So it depends on the injury, but full hand on deck, I go to the MAD Recovery Center, and they fulfill out a program for me for that specific injury, whatever it is, and I follow that protocol, whether icing, cryotherapy, red light therapy, or dry needling, whatever they
And you got
prescribe.
through with it.
And I go
of
through
course.
it, yeah.
So it's not that common to see a squash players at these days, especially. So can you tell us why is that?
It is common, but unfortunately the spotlight goes to different sports, group sports, maybe paddle.
Badly, yes.
Any sport that's the trending highlight, that's where most of the social media and the media overall goes for it. But there are lots of good athletes in Kuwait with lots of good achievement, but unfortunately, let's say the media is not highlighting the sports enough. And some part of it is from us, squash players, and let's say the squash community that's supposed to hype up the sport and brings more trendiness into the sport. But we need to go, you guys need to meet us halfway, in which the media has to come for us and we have to also
Of course,
spice
that's what
things up
we are
here.
doing here.
Yeah,
Exactly,
of
exactly.
course.
Yeah.
So have you thought like at one point during your career, like maybe you wanted to switch your career, try something else?
Maybe a different sport.
Basketball, like the father.
That's too late for me now. Most of my friends, they're basketball players. I actually tried in college to play basketball. We went to Rome. We played the Europe League for college. We were not lucky, but that's that.
Of course, I think you had a lot of different achievements throughout your life. So which one do you think is like some of the achievements that really set you back a little bit? Like sometimes, you know, we have a lot of achievements and sometimes they don't win championships. So kind of like these setbacks, they hold you back a little bit. So do you think like you had that in your career? Like you had a setback and you had to overcome it? Because I know like for a lot of athletes, there's like a point throughout their career, like they just stop at one point or they have like a setback and then they overcome it.
I think going into college and university and the way the time span changes from being a high school person goes to school and then later on just in the evening goes out and train, and the switching of the schedule goes to classes where your classes sometimes at 5 or 7 made a pause for me whether to train or go to classes. And since the infrastructure here in Kuwait is not well established for a person to become an athlete, so it's kind of, it was a challenge, it was a setback. Whether do I prioritize my education or do I go with training from 5 to 7?
Because the education takes clearly a long time.
Exactly.
Even in high school, yes.
Exactly. So managing, let's say time frame or time schedule was really difficult for me, and I unfortunately not had to put a pause for playing squash, but squash back then was not a priority for me. and then I
course.
managed to get my master's degree as well. So squash was not a priority for 5 or 6 years.
So you were still working out, but not like 100% like you used to be.
Indeed, yes, indeed.
So can you tell us about your best experience and your highlights on your journey, especially that you have to travel to many countries for squash competitions?
Going back to what I just said, I mean, Bangladesh, very far country, being vaccinated on a last minute, traveling all alone, managing the booking and meeting new people.
All of it was the highlights, or maybe some part of it?
I mean, I went to the airport without having the second dose of the vaccine.
And how did that turn out?
I got vaccinated the next day, and then I took a flight to Bangladesh to play straight ahead. I mean, that was really challenging because everyone knows that the second dose of Pfizer, or I don't recall the vaccine, was the kind of vaccine that puts you in bed for a week, and
to actually
for that
like
week,
compete the next day.
Exactly. So that was really challenging.
Of course. So do you think that you have achieved all your goals yet, or you still have a lot more goals to achieve?
For me, goals is a journey. It's not a specific goal. It's like a journey, and I'm still in that journey. So
Maybe achieving the Middle East tournament in squash. We have it, right?
These are milestones in the journey. These are not goals, because I
It's
look
like
at a goal.
Train stops.
Exactly. So I look at a goal. I mean, I think the way the mind is set up, if you set a goal and you achieve it, so you're at a checkpoint. Do you want to stop? You stopped. You achieved your goal. There's nothing else you want to do. But if you manage to say, well, I have milestones and I'm trying to achieve those milestones, then yeah, part of it becoming a professional athlete, that's a milestone for me. And another milestone, winning a championship, that's another milestone.
The World Championship also.
That could be a milestone, but that's not just a goal. It's just a milestone in the journey.
Yeah. So if you go back in time, would you maybe choose another field like basketball with your father?
I would probably do that.
And even though that you just said from before earlier in this interview that you kind of been forced for squash, but would you say to your father, okay, I saw the future, I wanted to go with basketball? Would you do that?
I mean, I can do that, but at the end of the day, because I like the camaraderie between the team spirits or the team sports, and I like to train with people and be like compete with a group of individuals against a group of individuals. That's a lot. That's the way I like to play. Squash has part of it, part of that spirit where we play as a group, but most of the time you play individually. And for that, I would maybe choose the basketball.
Inshallah, Adbi, at the near future, inshallah, we will see you reach your milestones and your train stations, and we will see Adbi in the headline in the newspapers that you achieved all what you want. But after this lovely information that you gave us, we really had fun. But do you have one last thing to say to your family or to our viewers?
Definitely, I would like to thank my sponsors. I mean, without them, I wouldn't be able to achieve such achievements, and their endorsement and continuous support. Mad Recovery Center, as I just mentioned, hands down, top notch on the region in terms of recovery center. Also, my workplace, Equit, for endorsing me and giving me the freedom and the space and the understanding of being a professional
really
and a competitive athlete and traveling and understanding that I need to compete in those tournaments. I mean, again, without their support, I wouldn't be able to achieve those goals. Family, friends, and definitely my father. Without them, again, all of this I couldn't have achieved it, with all honesty. And thank you, both of you, for having me and inviting me here in your studio.
Of course.
It's a pleasure. Yeah.
And thank you also for being here and to know what you love and to know everything about you.
Yes, it was really a pleasure to have you here with us. Dear viewers, we have reached the end of our time for this evening. Hope to see you again tomorrow. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.